Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. I've been getting a question a little bit lately, which comes in the wake of an announcement we made, I guess it was a week or two ago, that Dubai, or UAE, is introducing 9% corporate tax effective June 2023. And the question is, will the addition of corporate tax hurt Dubai? Are people going to leave? Is it people aren't going to move there anymore? And so today I'm going to dive in and talk a little bit about my thoughts on that subject. So let's get started. Before we do, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the all notification bell. Thank you for your support. If you'd like help with international tax optimization, relocating abroad, getting residencies, citizenships, etc., please reach out to me. You can book a call, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer. There's a link in the description below. Or send a message through our websites, offshorecitizen.net and offshorecapitalist.com. All right. So here's the question. Is the reason that people are moving to UAE simply because of zero corporate tax? That's the first question. Now, the second question, of course, is, will they actually have 9% corporate tax, or will you be able to avoid it with free zones and some other things? That's a separate question. We'll see how that plays out based on the implementation of rules. The other side of it, I think, is, has Dubai reached the point where it's attractive in and of itself? So clearly, low tax regime is attractive about Dubai and has been attractive about Dubai, whether you're a worker or a business owner. This being said, I'm going to give you some of my observations. So interestingly, a lot of the people who I know and I work with who relocate to Dubai, get residency, etc., set up a company, we help people set up companies every month, etc., often they actually don't use that business for much business. In other words, the business becomes an investing tool in order to get residency in the country, but they're not that concerned about using it. This would go for most investors, for example, right? If you're a cryptocurrency investor, if you're a stock trader, a forex trader, etc., probably the business not that relevant. So all of those people aren't going to leave Dubai, aren't going to stop coming to Dubai. That's number one. Number two, who is to say that you can't be in a situation where you set up the company, it has 9% tax, but you just pay yourself all the profits as wages at the end of the year, making it so that you have zero profits in the company and you pay zero tax. I suspect there's going to be a bunch of those types of strategies. We'll see whether that one particularly plays out when kind of the more clarified rules come out. But I suspect things like that will happen, which will mean people are effectively in a zero tax situation anyway. In addition to that, they may have a foreign company, and the foreign company may pay them, and they may reside in Dubai, but end up paying zero tax. Now, what about the others? Well, if you just think about this basic question, where else can you go? All right, where else can you go? Because you could go over to Qatar. Qatar is more difficult to get residency in, arguably less attractive to live in. Beautiful city. Doha is kind of like Dubai was 10 years ago, if you haven't been there. Great place, lots of progressive view, but 10% corporate tax, zero personal. So Dubai has been smart enough, or UAE has been smart enough to come in below the Qatar rate. Are you going to go to Europe? Well, everywhere in Europe has worse taxes, basically. You have Bulgaria, which is the lowest tax rate in the EU, kind of overall, minus some special regimes, like in places like Ireland, Cyprus, possibly Portugal, etc. And you're talking about 10% flat tax plus 5% dividend tax, right? You could look at Hungary, where you have 9% corporate tax, but then you've got much higher personal tax. So where are you going to go? You can't easily set up a company in most cases in the Caribbean anymore, so those are out. You could go to Monaco, but corporate tax in Monaco is way higher than 9%. It's actually ridiculously high. It's not particularly good at all. You could go to Malaysia, with Labuan. That's an attractive option at this point in time. Might be competitive. You could go to some place like, for instance, Georgia for certain types of companies. You could go to some place like Mauritius for certain types of companies. You could maybe go to, if you're in a low enough band, you could go to some place like Romania. So there are some places that you could go. But which of those places from a lifestyle standpoint offers what UAE does? None of them do, right? UAE is a world-class city. It's cheap, it's not cheap, it's super expensive actually. It's clean, it's safe, it's hyper convenient. At least about half of the year, the weather is fantastic. You've got virtually everything that you would want to have access to. You've got great places to live, Okay, it's expensive, so that's a reason that people already don't move, and those people probably won't move in this case, although you can find cheap ways to live if you want to in UAE. It's well connected. Okay, maybe you don't like the weather, fair enough. Maybe you want more nature, fair enough. Those would be reasons to go. But by and large, because of the fact that they still have zero personal tax, my view is that probably it won't affect them much at all. I think that generally speaking, the 9% tax is more targeted at foreign businesses which are setting up UAE subsidiaries. And in this sense, yes, I think they will possibly see a decline. So for example, UAE has been a really attractive place for Americans to set up subsidiaries because they're going to be hit with guilty tax anyway. If they had zero tax plus guilty tax, you're at 10.5%. So, that was decent. It was half the US corporate tax rate. So that was a good savings. Now you're going to be talking about 9% plus 10.5%. You're at 19.5%. It's not attractive anymore, right? So you've got those use cases are all going to go away. Some of these big companies that have presence, any of the local businesses that are actually serving Emiratis are not going to go away because they're serving the local market. And a lot of the big companies like Microsoft, et cetera, who may have an office, realistically, it's shareholder money, not their money. So the degree to which the decision making is going to be affected is probably minimal. However, you will probably see some move away. But again, the walls are closing in that sense. Most of those companies are going to be hit with the global minimum tax, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Whereas for UAE, if you think about it, if these companies were going to be hit with the global minimum tax anyway, they're going to pay an extra 15%. Why not claim 9% of that for themselves? Kind of smart. So in my opinion, this will do very little to reduce the attractiveness of UAE over time. I think that UAE will continue to be popular, but if they would bring in personal income tax, I think that could change quite a bit. Anyway, those are my thoughts. We'd love to hear yours. Put them in the comments below. If you want help with international tax optimization, relocating, etc., please reach out to me, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next video.